What is up, guys? Pup T. Thank you, Rooster, for my introduction. Lovely. On today's video, we're going to talk about the first level of preparedness. So, let's get into it, shall we? That's right, Rooster. Let's do it. Woo! I talked about on the video last week or the week before that about prepping, right? And I talked about being prepared and kind of the first stage, right? Of being aware of your surroundings, your situation, what's going on in the world, what's going on locally, all that type of stuff. The first level is your small situations, which one of those small situations can be just a simple power outage, right? So you're at the house and you have a rainstorm or something, or like what happened to us in January of 2020. We had a tree fall in the house. We didn't lose power from that, but there were certain things that we had to do in order to be prepared for that situation, right? So some tools that you're going to need for kind of your first level of preparedness, and I think is one of the most important, is going to be some type of weather alert radio, right? This also gives information on like children that get taken or lost, stuff like that. But in I think here it's every Thursday, this thing goes off, does its weekly test. But you know, if we're sitting at home and we want to just see what's going on, we can just click the weather, and as long as you're in the vicinity of that tower, right, it'll give you that information. Now you can scroll through and find an actual weather station for you. So just because that thing wasn't going off right now, it doesn't mean anything. All that means is, one, there's either no weather reports, or two, my location inside the barn is outside of the first radio station or weather station, so I'd have to scroll through to find another one, which is really, really simple to set up, but it is very, very important. And this is just, you know, your low weather or your low preparedness type stuff. So this is like step one, and then you build from there, right? Being aware of your surroundings and all that stuff, that's an everyday, daily habit you should be doing. But with furthering on to that is going to be prepping, right? So your first level of prepping. The first level is like severe weather, but it's not something that you foresee is going to be a big problem. So, you know, here in Tennessee, I don't have to worry about a tsunami coming up here. But that doesn't mean during a tropical storm on the Gulf that I don't have to worry about the rain when it comes up this way, because it can cause flooding and stuff like that in my area. So level one, first thing I would suggest everybody get, and I don't care if you live in the city, you're rural, you live in an apartment, high rise in a big city. I don't care. I really do believe in this. Now you can get weather alerts on your phones, which is great. However, this has a battery backup to it, right? So it's always plugged into power. But if we lose power, the battery backup kicks in and we get the information that we need. And I understand your cell phone would do the same thing. At some point, your cell phone could run out of battery, or you forgot to charge it that night and it ran out. Now, unless you have a way of charging that phone with a battery backup, it's not as reliable as this, right? I can get a couple AA batteries, throw it in here, and it's good to go. Now, if you get the ones that wind up, those are great. I suggest getting one of those and putting one of those in your get out of Dodge bag. But the second thing that I find is most important when you're talking about being prepared, level one, is a fire extinguisher. Okay, this one came out of Black Yeti, and so it's designed for vehicle fires, stuff like that. We have, like I said, we have 5, 6 of these, the red ones for your house inside. If you know who Clint Smith is from Thunder Ranch, he's a weapons instructor, but plus he's a Vietnam veteran, and he talks. He it was so great. Like this one time I was listening to him, and he's like, you know, I know a whole lot about some stuff, but I don't know nothing about firefighting, right? So he used some better words than I used, but it's true. You know, middle of the night, let's say it is severe weather, lightning strikes your house, causes a fire. What are you gonna do, right? Which goes into the next thing when you talk about level 1 preparedness. What do you do in case of a fire? If you don't have a fire extinguisher, what do? You know, I mean, you just lose everything. I mean, it could be a minor fire, and in that heat of that moment, you freak out and you bolt out the door. And now the fire extinguisher is not meant for you to put out a house fire, okay? That's not why I suggest to have one of these. I suggest you have one in your vehicle for certain, but I suggest you have in your home. So if you have to go through an area, like you have to go from your bedroom out into the living room, or out of your bedroom to your kids' rooms, you have a way to fight fire to get there, to get out, right? That's the main reason. This isn't to fight the fires, okay? If it's something super minor, yeah. But if your house is engulfed, this is just to get you out of the house. This is to save your kids, whether that be little munchkins that you have or your furry ones, you know, that's what that's for. Number 3 in preparedness, have a plan. So in case of a fire, in case somebody breaks in, what are your rules? What have you laid out to your family to let them know, hey, if this happens, this is the actions to take, okay? So big thing for me has been fire, right? So if there's a fire, we exit the house and we go to Sadie's Pond. Sadie's Pond is far enough away from the house, and everybody knows where Sadie's Pond is. And it's a straight shot to it. It's not like if I said Monsters Pond or the pole barn, you'd have to come out of a door, whichever door it was, and then you'd have to go so far this way, or, you know, even further if it was Monsters Pond. So it's Sadie's Pond. You can go right out the back door, boom, Sadie's Pond. If you got to go out the front door, you make a left, Sadie's Pond. It's right there. Step 3 would be to have a plan. Now, with these plans and being prepared, think about it in the simplest form. I'm sure everybody's possibly heard this term. It's a big one in the Army, I know. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. You want it to where the lowest level can understand what you're wanting to do, and they can act upon your plan. I don't need, like, my little guys, the 2s. Last year, we were going to do it this year, but last year, I took them outside and I showed them how to use a fire extinguisher. These fire extinguishers are $20 a piece. We used 2 of them, so that was $40. Was that a waste of money? Absolutely not. Because now they have a basic understanding that they gotta pull the pin and squeeze. And I set a little fire out there, boom. And that's what they did. They practiced with a little fire extinguisher. Like I said, it was around $20, but it was worth it. All right, so I talked about so far the weather radio, fire extinguisher, and the plan, right? A simple plan to basically on level 1 is to where to meet up in case of a fire, even in case of somebody trying to rob us, enter into the home. So the next thing is I want to prepare for generally 24 to 48 hours contingency plan, right? So things that I got to make sure that I have on hand for 24 to 48 hours. So one thing to have, fuel, right? So why have fuel on hand? 2 reasons. Number 1, if for some reason you had all your vehicles almost on empty, and you know for the next 24 to 48 hours there was a power outage, and even in town you weren't able to get gas, fuel, whatever, you want to have a little bit on hand. What does that mean? Does that mean, I need to have 20 gallons of fuel? I need to have 5 gallons of fuel? That's solely up to you. At a minimum, though, right? At a minimum, I'd have 5 gallons worth of fuel. And I would have 5 gallons worth of fuel, your regular, 87 fuel. And then if you have anything on your property around your house that's diesel, I would have 5 gallons of diesel. That way, if it goes from a small incident, like a level 1, and goes into level 2, which is 48 hours to 7 days, you'll have fuel for things that you need to do in and around the house. If you have something that takes diesel, like we do, 5 gallons of that, so that the diesel for us is the Kubota BX137. Let's say I gotta move something that's heavy. I'm not gonna move it by myself. And if it's that heavy, me and the wild one probably ain't gonna be able to move it. So, gotta make sure the tractor has fuel. You can sit there and say, well, I always make sure your stuff's topped off. Sure, in a perfect world, absolutely. I live in the real world, and I run, down to, in the Kubota, at least down to a quarter tank of gas. And then Black Yeti, I try to keep it at a half, but lots of times it ends up being a quarter. Next thing would be a way to store food. First and foremost, if the power goes out, don't open the fridge or your freezers if you have them. Because every time you open it up, you're letting a little bit of that cool air escape. If you keep the fridge door closed or you keep your freezer closed, it keeps that whatever's cold in there cold for a longer period of time. But in case it goes longer, or there's some things that you really, really are worried about, and you can get to your local Wally World or a gas station that has ice, is having a cooler. Everybody out there makes coolers now that are similar to the Yeti, or as good as the Yeti, or better than the Yeti. I don't know. I got mine Ozarks Trail from Wally World. It was missing the little lock mechanism on there. I got it for 10% off. I mean, save a buck here, spend it over there. So we have that cooler, but we have other coolers. But we have that cooler in case something does happen to where we know we're going to have to store food for, like I said, 24 to 48 hours. That's what I'm talking about here, 24 to 48 hours. Because inevitably you're going to have to get into your fridge, possibly into your freezer. So you're going to let some of that cold air out. But if you have things that you want to make sure stay cold and you have access to ice, whether it be, like I said, Wally World or your gas station, put that stuff in a cooler. It don't have to be a giant cooler, but put that stuff in a cooler, throw some ice on it, and you should be good for 24 to 48 hours. So food rations. In a 24 to 48 hour event, I wouldn't stress on your food. You don't need a 50-pound bag of rice. You don't need, wheat and yeast and, 30 pounds of salt. All this stuff that you would need on a level 3, which is, real world incident. But, always have that top shelf ramen noodles available. That way it's not the greatest for you, right? But it's there and it's available. So you can boil water. If you have a fuel source, right, don't use 87. Use some wood. And you got pots in your house, fill up some water. If you got to boil it first, then boil it. And then you can throw your ramen in there. Boom. You're good. So for 24 to 48 hours, a vet, you really shouldn't have to worry too much about food consumption, because all your food should be able to store for at least that long, 24 to 48 hours, probably longer, right? Having a cooler available, it's nice to have just in case. So the next thing I would discuss is going to be your first aid. So 24 to 48 hour first aid, what does that mean? If you're this huge prepper, that means tourniquet, that means chest compression seal, that means dang nasal thing you stick up in there, free airways and stuff like that. Great if you have that stuff, but for 24 to 48 hours, I would look at Band-Aids, hydrogen peroxide, and alcohol. right? If you have that stuff, you're good to go. Because again, this 24 to 48 hours is kind of like your everyday deal. Stuff that you'll have on hand anyway. It's not, you know, these huge prepper ordeals that we'll get into later on with, like, you know, medium-sized disaster, and which would be level 2, and level 3, which is your full-on real-world type deal. So Band-Aids, hydrogen peroxide, alcohol, that's really all you need. The last thing, for me, is going to be an emergency contact list. What numbers do you have? Who should you call? And when should you call them? Again, with the cell phone, most of us don't store phone numbers like we used to, right? Like, I can tell you what my phone number was when I was a kid. I can tell you 2 of those phone numbers to our home phone when I was a kid. But like now, I couldn't tell you other than my phone number and one of my son's phone numbers. That's all that I know by heart anymore. It's great, again, to have those numbers in your phone. But you should also have an emergency contact list that you've written down in some type of, either on a book, put it on the fridge, whatever it is. But emergency contact. Who do you contact and when do you contact? So if it's minor and it's 24 to 48 hours, contact somebody in your family, like your mom or your dad or whoever that you talk to on a normal basis, right? Because chances are they're going to know that you had an incident in your area. So having that contact list, again, is just to let them know, hey, we lost power, been out for the last couple hours, just so you know. So if you try to call me, you can't reach me, my cell phone is almost dead. Another one is emergency contact numbers, right? 911. You can call them. It's an emergency number. You can get your fire department, you can get your police, you can get your ambulance service. So that's a number that everybody knows. So when do you use that? Hot chicken! I love it. It is no greater sound than to hear the farm animals going crazy. Lay your egg already, Jiminy. And the only reason Homestead Boss ain't here, don't worry, she's right over here, is because I'm on the outside of the fence and she can't get to me. So, but, you know, call 911 if you do have an emergency, you know, your house is on fire, stuff like that. If you're trying to get information, don't call 911. Have the non-emergency number listed somewhere. Same with your electrical companies, your water companies, stuff like that. So that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. It just really simple things to kind of keep in mind. You know, maybe it's something that you know, haven't really thought about, or maybe there's more things that you know that I should know. Let me know in the comments down below. I know a whole lot about nothing and a whole lot of nothing about everything. You know what I mean? Like, I bet you 3 fat babies to a donut, some of y'all out there are like some real world preppers and could tell me what I needed day by day. You know, if you have some suggestions, put them down in the comments below. But if you guys could, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Give me some wild comments. Y'all are crazy. I love you. We love you. And we'll see you on the next video.